Hi guys, the tide is turning in New Zealand with regards to the housing and property investing, and everyone needs to wake up to this fact. I think that Luxon has finally realised that he made a grave error in throwing billions and billions at landlords as soon as he got into power. He did not read the room well at all, did he? Hence why thousands of young Kiwis have abandoned ship and left for Australia. To give you an idea of how the psyche is changing in New Zealand with regard to housing, have a look at this headline from interest.co.nz, which is my favourite New Zealand news source and I've got no affiliation with, I just like them. Chris Bishop says, New Zealand should destroy the idea that the economy is linked to house price growth. Now I have put a link in the description to the full article, it's well worth a read. So if you do go over and have a read of that and you're still not convinced that the tide has turned, then have a listen to Chris Bishop, who, don't forget, is the New Zealand Housing Minister. Here he is on the podcast he was on a few weeks back. Now there is a link to the full podcast in the description also.
Our homelessness crisis is a symptom of a failed housing market.
Yeah.
So fixing the market is the most important thing we can do. If my housing reforms work, it will actually incentivise investment away from property. The reason why people invest in property, or have done in New Zealand, is it's been a runway train. It's just house prices just keep going up. So the simplest way to make money in this country is go and buy.
So why wouldn't you?
Exactly. Once people work that out, that just continuing to funnel their money into buying a rental or buying a second rental or buying a third or whatever, and leveraging the first rental to buy the second one and all that sort of stuff, which is part of the problem of New Zealand's economy, right? Once people work that out, that's not a runway success story anymore. It's not a gravy train to prosperity.
I suppose quite infamously, though, you said that you actually want to see house prices come down, which
Yes.
I loved, but it's not the normal rhetoric we would hear from a centre-right politician. Do you feel like you're sticking your neck out here, and do you have your colleagues support?
I've only had overwhelming feedback and the positive about it. It's really interesting. And it's interesting that Chris Hipkins and Kieran McAnulty and Jacinda Ardern refuse to say the same thing. So the so-called progressive champions on the left who, remember Jacinda, I mean, it really infuriates me. She spent most of her time in opposition going on about how house prices are out of control and we've got to get the housing market under control, and like young generation of New Zealanders are being left out of the housing market, like blah, 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 all of which was true, by the way. She got in and then washed her hands of the problem, never talked anything more about it. Whenever she got asked questions about it, she'd say, I want to see like sustained moderation and moderate increases.
Why would a fall in house prices, can you just explain why that would be a bad thing?
Oh, look, what we've simply expressed here is that the growth that we're seeing is just unsustainable. And so if anything, look, it is much more sustainable to have those, much smaller increases. I think people expect that you see that in the market. What we also accept is that for most New Zealanders, their house is their most significant asset. So if you see, for instance, as was predicted at the beginning of the year, a significant crash in the housing market, that impacts, of course, people's most significant asset.
Sorry, one more thing. When I
question.
When I go to buy shares, I don't expect that they will always increase. That's the part of if you do an investment,
And
they go up and they go down.
You've gotten
So
to
why
the
is
heart of the issue.
Why is it different for housing?
This gets to the heart of the issue of why so many New Zealanders turn to the housing market. Thanks.
It's like totally ridiculous. Like New Zealand house prices are massively out of whack with what they should be. The international measure of affordability is a house price to income ratio of 3 to 4 to 1.
So yes guys, who'd have thought it? That's a national housing minister talking like that. Now I do believe that the next election is going to have housing front and centre. People have had enough of this. The mass exodus of the best and the brightest have finally made Parliament take notice to the destruction that they've been sponsoring for too long. And I tell you what guys, long may it continue. So I hope you found that interesting. Please like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers for that.